Novel title, Hail the King. Chapter 16, The Insane Discovery. As Emma stared at Faye, a mischievous smile covered her face. The front half of your Majesty's palace. There's enough space for all the soldiers. It depends on whether or not you are willing to do so. Faye's eyes brightened. Great idea. That's it. Brooke, go ahead and organize the remaining soldier. Make sure that you're able to move all the wounded soldier to the front half of my palace. Also, notify all the doctors. It doesn't matter how severe the injuries are, tell them to try their best to maintain the lives of the wounded soldiers. I will handle the rest. Brooke was shocked. Your Majesty, you can't. Why not? Faye laughed. They bled for me in the kingdom of Chambord, so why can't I provide them with a better place to stay and be treated? Emma was stunned. She proposed this solution not to solve the problem, but to childishly confront Faye. She didn't expect Faye to listen to her. Hey Alexander. Are you sure about this? It was unheard of that a king would offer his palace as healing facility for the wounded soldiers. Faye purposely rubbed Emma's head and made a mess of the hair. Of course, thanks for your suggestion, kiddo. You are the kiddo here. Angela didn't say a word. She simply smiled as she watched Faye and Emma play with each other. Her mood was unprecedentedly happy. How long had it been since she was this happy? Angela didn't know the answer to that question herself. The way she was looking at Faye was getting brighter and brighter. The wounded soldiers were quickly moved to the front half of the king's palace. Food, water, wool blankets, and clothes were distributed to all of them under Angela's and Emma's lead. Faye had also generously given out a portion of his treasure and wealth to motivate the soldiers. At this dire moment, morale had to be high. Aside from spiritual encouragement and motivation, there had to be some material benefits too. As a student who had taken psychology courses before, Faye knew what he had to do. The cheering of, "Hail King Alexander," resounded throughout Chambord Castle once more. Some wounded soldiers were touched and started crying, and swore to devote their lives towards following King Alexander's commands. Faye's action had definitely won over the soldiers' respect even more. In this world where the lives of commoners were basically worthless, it was pretty easy to win over the support the people. After organizing the wounded soldiers, Faye handed control over to the military guru, Brooke, to plan duties such as the guarding and securing the defensive wall and putting up more barriers. He returned to the back of the palace and ordered that no one was to enter his room. He had to check on his injuries. Luckily, they weren't too severe. His first battle wasn't bad. He wasn't injured at all when fighting the two 1-star warriors. Only when he was trying to take on the 3-star warrior Landis did he get injured. He went head-to-head with the exploding sun strike and only puked some blood. The most severe injury was when Faye's shoulder was pierced by Landis' sword. Landis' fire energy had entered Faye's body through the sword and shocked his internal organs, an injury similar to Pierce. Faye took a gamble when he intentionally let Landis pierce him. He brought the strength and abilities of the barbarian to this world, thinking that the defense and armor of the barbarian was also probably brought to this world. It would minimize the damage from Landis. In fact, he won the gamble. The energy of a 3-star warrior should have been able to shatter Faye's organs into pieces, but due to barbarian's sick armor and defense, the organs were only shocked. There weren't any deadly effects. Of course, Faye had to do that. In that situation, Faye couldn't think of another way to temporarily defeat Landis except for tricking him. If Faye didn't force Landis off of the defensive wall, he would have become just another soul under Landis' sword by now. It wasn't that Faye wasn't scared of death. It was just that he was too scared of death, so he had to risk everything he got. After checking his injuries, Faye began doing something very important. He sat on the bed and tried to enter the Diablo world. If he wanted to save the lives of his soldiers, he had to enter the Diablo world once again. Faye's idea was simple. If he could bring the abilities and attributes from the character in the Diablo world to real life, then he could probably bring the items and potions into the real world. If he could bring the healing potions, which could literally heal all the health of a dying character in the Diablo world, into the real world, then Pierce and all other soldiers' lives could be saved. After thinking about that, Faye couldn't wait to enter the Diablo world. He meditated on the bed. He concentrated as he tried to remember how he entered the Diablo world for the first time. He tried to communicate with the strange voice inside his head. The result surprised Faye. There was a quick response. Gamer Faye seeking approval to enter Diablo world. Soul scan valid. Game time verifying. Excess time left over. Request approved. Countdown 3, 2, 1. Enter. The cold yet mysterious voice spoke. Faye had the pleasure to travel through the Stargate again, as he felt dizzy and a strange wave went through his body. The scene in front of Faye surprised him. He remembered that he was still in the den of evil on Blood Moor. He was expecting to be sent back to the same place, but it definitely wasn't the case. He was not at the den of evil, nor rogue encampment. It wasn't even in the Diablo world. He was in front of a 3D projected screen. On the screen, there were 7 playable characters: Amazon, Assassin, Barbarian, Druid, Necromancer, Paladin, and Sorceress. They were all standing in front of a bonfire. Every character was real. Faye could even hear them breathing. It felt like there were 7 people standing in front of Faye. Is this the selection screen in the game? Why am I here? Could it? As Faye was thinking, he saw a button under the screen. Create a new character. Faye was stunned at first, he couldn't control his excitement. Create a new character. Does that mean I could play other classes and bring their abilities into the real world? An imaginary door opened in front of Faye. He could see his bright future. There were numerous opportunities. If he was a level 99 character in Hell game mode and was able to use those abilities in the real world, how powerful could he become? All he could think about were the possibilities. Hundreds of abilities from all 7 classes would definitely create a big storm in the real world, and no one would be able to defeat him. This is insane. Faye couldn't hold himself together. He had to try it out to be sure. He thought about it and decided to become a fancy mage this time. Instantly, a beautiful woman representing the class Sorceress stepped forward. She waved her powerful wand and lightning came down from the sky, then she bowed to Faye. The bottom on the screen changed to Confirm Selection. Faye pressed yes. The screen began disappearing and his vision blurred. It was the sign of entering the Diablo world. Novel title, Hail the King. Chapter 17, The God of Toleration. The Diablo system didn't give Faye much time to regret his choice. Right after a second, everything in front of Faye had changed. Faye felt the zero gravity again from traveling through the time tunnel. His vision blurred for a second. The next thing he knew, he had appeared in Rogue encampment and was at the spot where new players would spawn. The sky was still dark and the rain continued pouring down. The Rogue encampment was completely quiet. Faye found out that when he changed his class to Sorceress, everything went back to zero. It seemed as if he had restarted the game. He went to the High Priestess Akra to receive the quest Den of Evil, and the intelligent women treated Faye like a stranger while giving him the quest. After he got the quest, he went back to the place where he spawned. He suddenly remembered something. He looked down his pants and hoped that he could touch something with his hand. After a brief moment. Hugh, okay. So I didn't become a female. It would have been way too cruel. Faye was very happy. Although the Sorceress class was made to be a female in the Diablo world, his character appearance was based off Alexander in the real world. There were some minor changes, but he looked similar to the Barbarian Faye. He was wearing a coarse gray robe and holding a 2-yard-long tree branch wand. These 2 items were given to Faye when he spawned. They were pretty cheap and powerless. Quickly, the NPC Warrior had rushed over again and started talking. Greetings, stranger. I'm not surprised to see. With his previous experience, Faye ignored him and walked away. At this point, Faye was certain that his hypothesis was correct. He could choose all the classes in the Diablo world, but he would only know whether or not he could bring their abilities into the real world after he exited the game world. After he proved his hypothesis, he decided to exit the Sorceress character mode. It wasn't that he didn't want to be a mage, but rather it was better to concentrate all his resources into one class for now. Chambord was under a real threat. He decided to focus his time on leveling up the Barbarian Faye, so he could be more useful for the next battle. As he was thinking about exiting the mode, he was automatically transferred to the 3D character selection screen without pressing any buttons. Damn. I can control everything now by just thinking about them. He thought about choosing the level 5 Barbarian character and his vision blurred again, along with the feeling of zero gravity. He had entered the Diablo world again as a level 5 Barbarian. This is cool. Faye thought. He could simply think about what he wanted to do, and there wouldn't be any need for button pressing. The place he appeared in was the Den of Evil. After he killed all the monsters in the den and completed the quest, he used a town portal scroll before he was kicked out of the Diablo world. The bright blue oval was still buzzing in front of him when he re-entered this world. There were still some items on the ground. Faye checked his item slot. All the valuable items were picked up by him, and the items on the ground were pretty much worthless. He stepped into the blue portal and appeared at Rogue encampment. The dark and rainy weather had stopped, and sunlight shined onto Rogue encampment. Although the sky was still a little dim and gloomy, like how the polluted skies on Earth made people feel depressed, the fresh, clean air lightened up Faye's mind. Faye went directly to the Priestess Akra. The same dialogue as the original game occurred and Faye was awarded 1 new skill points. Faye put this point into weapon mastery without thinking. There wasn't enough time for Faye to distribute the points evenly among all the abilities. Weapon mastery allowed him to defeat the star-ranked warriors with godlike axe techniques, so leveling that ability up would significantly improve his combat effectiveness. After he did that, he began bothering Akira. Honorable Priestess Akira, I have a few questions. I know what you want to ask, young traveler. This spiritual leader of rogue encampment seemed like she had seen through Faye. She smiled, I'm willing to answer your questions, but you have to know, at rogue encampment, everything has a price, so the key is. Do you have anything that interests me? Damn, this woman is direct. Faye was surprised by the brutal honesty of Akira. He thought that the high priestess wouldn't be moved by anything. Who knew that as a spiritual leader of rogue encampment, she would directly ask for bribes? Faye felt that his respect for this woman had sunk. Okay, can gold coins be used as a price? Faye asked. Yes, the smile on Akira's face brightened up even more. Every answer will cost you 2,000 gold coins. Of course, some answers will cost more based on the question. You might not be able to afford them at this point. Faye was excited that Akira agreed to answer his question. However, when he checked his item slot, he was really disappointed. He only had 1,100 gold coins. He couldn't even afford one answer. He had to come up with something. Faye felt like swearing, damn this Akira. 2,000 gold coins per answer. Why don't you go and rob a bank? Looks like I have to sell my items. Wait. Items. Faye saw the 2 blue magic items. If gold coins can be used to buy an answer, then items could probably be used too, right? Although he was complaining about the price of the answers, he didn't show any of that on his face. He turned to Akira and asked respectfully, Honorable Priestess Akira, I don't have enough gold coins. Can these 2 items be used as a substitute? He brought out the grim wand and the javelin. Akira's eyes brightened up. Magic items. Yeah, they can be used as substitutes. It has been a while since items of this quality have appeared in rogue encampment. Young traveler, this blazing grim wand and this athlete's javelin are worth 8,000 gold coins. I can answer 4 of your questions. Akira was a high priestess and had the ability to identify items without using identify scrolls, so she could call out the names of the items by scanning them with her bare eyes. When she was identifying the items, she looked very serious and Faye felt a hint of sacredness in her. In addition to the purple nun robe she was wearing, she was totally different from the tricky merchant Faye had in mind. Only 8,000 gold coins. That's way too low. Faye yelled in exaggeration. He actually didn't know the right price for these 2 magic items. Because of Faye's bad impression of Akira, he felt the price that Akira spoke of was lower than the standard. Honorable Priestess Akira, it's not right for a spiritual leader like you to speak of gold coins all the time. How about this, let's trade these 2 items for 5 answers. If I get more items like these in the future, I will take them to you as well. Akira was defeated by the shamelessness of the traveler. He spoke of the gold coins as if they were filthy on one hand, yet increased the value of his items by 2,000 on the other. She thought about Faye's suggestion and accepted it. Many years had passed and the man in front of her was the only traveler that could step into rogue encampment, and he was the first to survive on Blood Moor. Although there were some skillful female rogues, they could barely protect the encampment. There was no way that they could survive on Blood Moor and bring back all these valuable items. Also, Akira felt that as time passed by, the power of Diablo was corroding the energy of this world faster and faster. She had many important plans that this young traveler needed to complete. Thanks for your generosity, Honorable Priestess Akira. My first question is, how did I come into this world? Young traveler. Akira stared at Faye strangely and spoke, I don't know where you came from, but I could sense that you are not from this world. However, I'm sure that your arrival was all God's decree. This world needs you. What? God's decree. This is your answer. Faye didn't know how to respond. Yes, this is the answer. Akira nodded seriously. Faye almost fainted. He was outraged. God's decree. This bullshit is worse than not having an answer. Faye was fascinated by science when he was on Earth and didn't believe in ghosts or gods. Akira's answer to him was completely BS. However, Faye couldn't do anything about it. He was dealing with the leader of rogue encampment. He had to endure his rage. He quickly came up with the second question. So for the second question, if I'm killed by the monsters on the moor, will I be revived? This was the most important question to Faye. There were a list of quests in Diablo World. It would only get harder as he leveled up. He would have to face all the powerful demons from hell one day, and death would probably be unpreventable. So, before his death actually happened, he had to make sure that it was the same as the original game, where characters revived after their deaths. Akira stared at Faye strangely again. Young man, I have to admit that you know way more about this world than I expected. It was true that long time ago, the travelers and warriors revived after their death by the redemption of the gods. Akira slowed down as she spoke, but time had passed on for too long. Diablo's power is corrupting this world every second. It has been almost 60 years since a traveler has stepped foot into Rogue encampment. So, the answer to this question is, I don't know. Fate was shocked. You don't know. Does this count as an answer? Yes, because I have told you all I know. There was fire burning in Faye's eyes, smoke coming out his mouth and steam coming out his nose. What the hell? This priestess isn't joking with me, is she? Faye was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He had to tolerate. Novel title, Hail the King. Chapter 18, Magic Items Again. Faye tried to hold himself together and squeezed the third question out of his mouth. I want to know if I can bring items in this world into my world. You know that I mean, right? Honorable Priestess Akira. Faye was ready. If Akira said anything like, it's God's decree, or, I don't know, Faye would literally punch Akira. Consequences. Screw that. Faye thought. He didn't care what the consequences were for fighting with the leader of Rogue encampment. Fortunately, Akira's answer wasn't anything like that. Young traveler, you have memorized this rule. In this world, everything has a price. If you have and are willing to trade items that even the gods envy, you can get anything you want. So you mean, if I can pay for it, I can take it to my world, right? Young man, this is your fourth question. You damn woman, you're so cheap. Faye cursed in his mind. Although he was pissed, he appeared respectful towards Akira. He shook his head. No, of course not. Faye was honestly scared by the greediness of Akira. He quickly asked his fourth question, why am I forced to leave this world after a few hours? What's that voice inside my head? That is God's direction, my child. When your mental strength is strong enough, you will get to stay in this world forever. But now, it's obviously not the case. With your current mental strength, you can only stay in this world for 4 hours. Mental strength. So that's the key. Faye now understood. After Faye got the answer, he turned around and quickly walked. He was afraid that he would do inexplicable things to Akira. Who said that NPCs were dumb, and that their only purpose was to accelerate the plot of the game. Faye trusted this concept too hard and suffered a big loss while negotiating with Akira. Young traveler, you still have one last chance to ask a question. Akira gloated. I will save my last question for now. I will come and ask you when I get a question that's worth 2,000 gold. Looks like I have to be more careful when dealing with NPCs in this world, or they're going to suck me dry like a vampire. Damn, they're scarier than the monsters on the moor. After talking with Akira, Faye decided to level up his character. Chambord Castle was under serious danger, so he had to increase his power right away. Even if he couldn't defend the castle, he still could protect the people that were close to him. The fastest way to level up was not to slay monster non-stop to gain experience, but to complete various quests. The experience he could gain from it was way more efficient, so before Faye left Rogue encampment, he went to Xianxia, the military leader at the encampment. From her, Faye received his second quest. Sister's Burial Grounds. Faye had to kill the blood raven who lived there. As the military leader at the encampment, Xianxia had a lot of well-trained female rogues under her command. In the original game, when players completed the quest, they would gain the trust of this military leader, and she would give them a rogue mercenary to fight alongside the players. I wonder if these female rogues are as pretty as the ones in the original game. Faye's EQ plummeted when he thought of girls. He tried to peek into the tents behind Xianxia, where the female rogues lived. Light crisp giggles came from the tents and it skyrocketed Faye's curiosity. However, the damn curtains on the tents blocked Faye's view, and he didn't see a thing. Faye had to leave it behind and left Rogue encampment. Blood Raven was a traitor of the Rogue encampment, and a corrupted rogue. She lived in a burial ground on the cold plain. She was not only a strong boss, but there were also a ton of monster that guarded her. As Faye left the encampment and traveled through Blood Moor, he killed numerous monsters. After around 2 hours of traveling, he finally entered the cold plain under the heavy rain. At that moment, Faye had leveled up his barbarian character to level 7. Like a lot of the RPG, you needed more experience and time to level up as your level got higher. It took Faye less than 3 hours to go from level 0 to level 5, but it took more than 2 hours for him to level up to level 7 from level 5. Just like its name, the cold plain was way colder than the Blood Moor. It was like going from Brazil directly to the North Pole. The monsters were stronger, too. Except for the fallen shaman and vampire, which were the common monsters, there was a new type of monster, corrupt rogue. They were basically rogues that had absorbed death energy from hell and turned evil. They used spears and swords to attack Faye when they saw him appear at Cold Plain. They rushed towards Faye in groups. When one died, it screamed and called for more corrupt rogues to show up. There was no way that Faye could have avoided them, so he manned up and battled his way out of it. After an hour, Faye had finally arrived at the burial ground where Blood Raven lived. There was 1 hour left, until he would reach his 4-hour time limit per day in the Diablo world. There was enough time for Faye to complete the quest, before he would get kicked out of this world. But before that, Faye checked his status and decided to do one thing. Go back to the encampment to fix his weapons and armor, as well as purchase some potions. The battles at Cold Plain had worn out Faye's items. The durability and effectiveness of his items decreased a lot. If he wanted to fight the boss of Cold Plain, Blood Raven like that, he was better off poking a tiger's ass with a stick. It would be an easier way to die. Faye opened his item slot and used a town portal scroll. Faye stepped in as the bright blue oval portal appeared. After the buzz, Faye was teleported back to Rogue Encampment. From Faye's memories of the original game, there was a woman called Charcy, a NPC blacksmith who sold and repaired weapons and armor. Faye checked his mini-map and found Charcy a couple tents away. She was a young female who looked around 18 years old. Although Charcy was pretty, she didn't have the appearance of a delicate yet fragile female, probably because she was a blacksmith. She looked valiant, but didn't seem happy. It seemed like there was something bothering her. She wasn't surprised about Faye's arrival. After Faye talked to her, his axe and armor were repaired at the cost of 20 gold coins. Faye also sold the items that he didn't need from the monsters to Charcy. He found out that for the same items, he got more gold coins for them from Charcy than from Akira. That priestess is not a good egg. Faye's resentment towards Akira grew even greater. He swore that he was never going to sell his items to Akira again. Charcy didn't seem like she wanted to chat, so Faye thanked her politely and went back to Cold Plain to fight the boss Blood Raven. There wasn't much time left. After 50 minutes, a mournful female scream disturbed the quiet plains. Faye was wounded all over his body. After the tense battle with Blood Raven, one of the strongest evil rogues, she had finally died under Faye's axe. Faye shamelessly dragged out the fight. He ran from the boss when his health was low and battled the boss after he used health potions. Although it was sneaky, there was no other way for Faye to win that fight. Blood Raven was too powerful. After Blood Raven died, numerous lightning bolts came out of her body. It quickly occupied the whole burial ground as if it was the end of world. However, Faye was not hurt by the lightning at all. It seemed like the lightning's purpose was not to cause damage. After a while, the lightning disappeared. A strange scene appeared. Above the corpse of Blood Raven, an illusory female figure, like an angel, raised up the sky. She looked like a female rogue. It must have been the poor soul of this rogue before she had fallen. Faye thought. My actions must have saved her. After a second of seriousness, he quickly checked out the corpse. Theoretically, after killing bosses like Blood Raven, magic items would be rewarded. Just as Faye expected, blue lights flickered under the corpse. Novel title, Hail the King. Chapter 18, Minor Healing Potion. I'm rich. 2 magic items. Faye picked up the 2 items. Although he was expecting it, he was still extremely excited. As he was about to take a detailed look of the 2 items, the cold, mysterious voice appeared again. Approaching the time limit of the day, please prepare for exit. Finally. However, this time the voice didn't start the 3-second countdown right away. It gave Faye some time to get ready. I was waiting for you for a while. Faye thought. It was true that Faye was focused on killing the monsters, but he was also waiting for this voice to appear. Faye was afraid that he would lose this opportunity, so he yelled to the sky, wait. I have something to ask you. I want to exchange some healing potions and take them to my world. You know what I mean, right? Tell me, what do I have to pay as a price? At the same time, Faye was concentrating on trying to communicate with the mysterious voice inside his head. However, the voice didn't respond right away. Faye's question was followed by a moment of complete silence. For Faye, who was in need of an answer, these 4 seconds of silence felt like a decade. Finally, after the 5th second, the cold, mysterious voice spoke again. As you wish, minor healing potion. The conversion price is 3,000 gold coins, with the conversion success rate of 25%. The gold coins will be deducted from the item slot of the gamer. If gold coins are not sufficient, items can be used as a substitute with 80% of their actual value. Please confirm the conversion. Countdown, 10, 8, 5 inch. Yes. Confirm, convert 3 bottles of minor healing potion. Faye was excited that it could be done. Insufficient gold coins, insufficient items, please restate the converting items or quantities. Countdown, 4, 3-inch. Convert 1 bottle of minor healing potion. Faye was anxious. Insufficient gold coins, sufficient items 25% conversion success rate, calculating, conversion successful, maximum gaming time reached, exiting. A clear sound entered Faye's ear. Faye's vision blurred as the world started twisting in his eyes, turning completely black within seconds. Faye exhaled as he jumped off of his bed. He looked around and realized that he was back at the king's palace. His fiancée, Angela, was sitting on the side of the bed and stared at him with her blue, ocean-like eyes. Worry covered her pretty face. "Alexander, you are finally awake." After Faye waking up, her worry disappeared. She was so happy that her voice was shaking. Your left shoulder was bleeding. "Oh, did you just have a nightmare? Your body was shaking vigorously when you were asleep and you were sweating a lot. I was worried that you..." There wasn't much logic in Angela's sentences, but Faye felt the concern from the girl in front of him. Her concern wasn't because he was now the hero of Chambord. Neither was it similar to the respect and the care she showed towards Brooke and the soldiers. It was a simple emotion from Angela's heart. She didn't care if Faye was the retard back then or a hero now. Angela, this angelic girl, would always care for him. That concern and care caused a special feeling to well up inside Faye's heart. Maybe this was directed only for the old Alexander, but Faye still had a great impression of Angela. Although Faye liked pretty girls, it was typical for a male. Faye was actually very old school and was never promiscuous. However, Angela's kindness had touched Faye. Faye was fond of her. What girl could be so caring and nice to a man who she knew was a retard, and would be her future husband? Why was Angela Alexander's fiancée? Faye didn't know, but that didn't affect his decision at this point. He was going to marry her no matter what and give her the happiness she deserved. "Relax, Angela, I had recovered a long time ago." Faye smiled at Angela. He took off his armor and opened his shirt. The wound that Landis' sword had left was almost completely healed. There was only a tiny red speck there indicating that an injury had taken place. That was proof of Faye's hypothesis. After going to the Diablo world, any type of injury on his body will magically recover. Angela blushed as she checked Faye's wounds in detail. Noticing no problems, she was finally relieved. When Alexander was a retard, Angela subconsciously treated him as a little kid and didn't have any other kinds of feelings for him. But now that Alexander had suddenly become normal, she realized that she couldn't keep her cool in front of him. Every time she thought about the identity of the man in front of him, her fiancé, her heart began pounding really quickly. Angela didn't know that her blushing face had stunned Faye. He couldn't look away. Neither of them said anything. It was completely quiet in the palace. The atmosphere was becoming more enchanting and mesmerizing. What a wonderful moment. Faye thought pleasantly. However, just as Faye was enjoying the mood, it was suddenly destroyed. The door to Faye's room was pushed open. Emma rushed in. Emma didn't know that she had interrupted this special moment. Not noticing Faye's hateful stares, she yelled, "Alexander, how is your cure coming along? Uncle Pierce can't hold any longer." Shit. Faye finally remembered his most urgent task. He looked around, and finally found the item that he had paid a lot for lying on his bed, minor healing potion. Thank God that the magic potion that could save one from dying in the Diablo world was successfully converted into the real world. Faye held the little bottle in his hand and carefully observed it. It was more like a glass jar about the size of an orange. The red liquid in it had a low viscosity, just like Coke. This is too little. It's probably not enough to cure Pierce and the 200 wounded soldiers. Faye thought as he saw the quantity of the potion in the bottle. What should I do? Let me try the effect of this potion. If it's as magical in this world as it's in the Diablo world, maybe diluting the potion can save all their lives. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Emma didn't let Faye think too much. She tried to drag Faye to Pierce. Angela finally calmed down and was about to follow them, but Faye turned around and said to her, "Angela, can you go and help me to prepare 2 pots of clean water? I will need it later." "Why do you need pots and clean water?" Emma was like curious baby. "I will help Angela with that. Alexander, you go and check out Uncle Pierce, he can't hold on any longer." Faye arrived at the front half of the palace. Wounded soldiers filled the place and groaned non-stop. Luckily, most of them received great care and their spirits were better than when they were at the crowded healing facility. Except for the doctors, some women were called to the palace to take care of all the wounded soldiers. King Alexander's kindness had made it clear to all the people of Chambord that everyone had to be united and work together if they wanted to survive this dangerous ordeal. "Your Majesty has arrived." After seeing Faye arrive, someone yelled, causing Faye to become the center of attention right away. What happened on the battlefield had quickly spread throughout Chambord Castle. Many people had concluded that the retarded king was blessed by the god of war, and became the savior of Chambord. Therefore, Alexander naturally became the spokesman of the god of war and was respected and worshipped. Everyone was excited and wanted to greet Faye. Someone even kneeled down and kissed Faye's boots. This scared Faye, damn. Hey chill. Although Faye enjoyed showing off and being worshipped, this much enthusiasm and passion was too much for him. After finally escaping from the crowd, he heard someone crying beside him. Novel title, Hail the King. Chapter 20, Oscar-worthy acting. Faye traced the source of the sound. At the corner on his right-hand side, a thin, red-haired little girl was holding someone while crying. Faye took a closer look. The person who the little girl was holding was the severely wounded Pierce. The second commander of the king's guards, Brooke, was beside them looking worried. He kept talking to the little girl to comfort her. Your Majesty. After seeing Faye, Brooke was excited. He stood up and bowed, did you find a cure? He looked at Faye nervously. He was afraid that Faye would shake his head and say something disappointing. Pierce was at his limit. He could probably hold on another 10 minutes, but that would be it. Faye saw the humble Brooke getting extremely nervous and decided to tease him a little. He didn't respond to Brooke's question. Instead, he pointed at the red-haired little girl. She is Louise. She is Pierce's daughter Louise. Brooke tried to hold his anxiety and introduced the little girl to Faye. Faye nodded without saying anything. So this is the daughter that Pierce was worrying about when he was severely injured. Faye thought. Unlike Pierce, who was an insensitive tough guy, little Louise was very cute. With tears in her eyes, she could melt everyone's heart. Her red hair was very noticeable too. It reminded Faye of Hermione from Harry Potter. However, Faye felt that Louise wasn't that very approachable as a kid. She was cold and seemed way too mature for a 12-year-old girl. Are you the one that Uncle Brooke said can save my father? Although Louise was crying, when she felt someone walking towards her, she looked up. There were still tears in her eyes, and Faye could tell that she was heartbroken. However, she said in a voice unfit for her age, if you can save my father, I'm willing to be your lover forever. Faye was shocked. He didn't know what to say. To hell. Are all the kids in this world that precocious? I ain't no harem king. Faye thought to himself. He didn't want to talk to this kid anymore. It was more challenging for Faye to face her than one of the bosses in the Diablo world. Faye sat down beside Pierce, who relapsed into a heavy coma. He took out the minor healing potion and carefully poured one drop of the potion into Pierce's mouth. Whether it would work or not was going to be tested at this moment. Faye was nervous. Brooke and Louise were even more nervous. All three of them stared at Pierce. Their hearts were pounding extremely quickly, hoping that it would work. Time passed slowly. The silence was like poison. No one dared to breathe. Eventually, Pierce, who was struggling to breathe, began inhaling and exhaling rapidly. His pale face was getting red and his wounds were recovering at a ridiculous speed visible to the human eyes. Brooke and Louise were shocked. Their jaws dropped subconsciously. Although they didn't know what the red liquid was that King Alexander dropped into Pierce's mouth, it was super effective. The healing power of the liquid was beyond their wildest dreams. Unimaginable. Spectacular. Unheard of. It was better than any healing spell from the high priests of the Holy Church. Brooke and Louise looked at each other and then stared at Faye. They were almost sure that Faye was a living god. Faye was shocked by the terrifying healing power of the minor healing potion as well. He wasn't expecting that a single drop of the potion could be so effective. Obviously, if Pierce emptied the bottle, he could easily recover 100% and fight another battle. However, the impact of that would be too shocking to everyone around, so Faye didn't do it. Faye observed Pierce's condition. He found that after one drop of the potion, the wounds had all recovered and Pierce's face wasn't that pale anymore, but he was still unconscious. That's probably the max healing one drop can do. This gave Faye a rough measurement of the potion's healing power, so he dropped another drop into Pierce's mouth. The effect was instant this time. As soon as the drop landed in Pierce's mouth, Pierce woke up from the coma. He groaned as he opened his eyes. He was confused when he saw the three of them standing in front of him. He shook his head as he tried to remember what had happened. He remembered that he was about to die, but somehow, the unbearable pain throughout his body stopped and he could breathe again. What happened? After seeing Pierce speak, Brooke was finally relieved. Louise happily shouted as she jumped into the arms of Pierce. At this moment, the 12-year-old girl felt secure and happy like never before. Father, you're alive. Thank God, the king saved you. Louise couldn't even finish speaking. She was so happy that she started sobbing. It was a terrifying feeling for her to lose the only loved one she had left. It scarred her soul and she didn't want to experience that ever again. Pierce seemed to realize what had happened in his daughter's sobs. The brave warrior didn't say a word, he tightly hugged his daughter. After feeling the fear and excitement in his daughter's face, a drop of the hero's tear fell from his eyes. Fei looked at this happy father and daughter family and smiled. Fei quietly left, he didn't want to interrupt the special moment the family was having. 2 drops of the minor healing potion brought Pierce back from the Grim Reaper's hand. This gave Fei a better understanding of the effectiveness of the potion, similar to the effectiveness in the Diablo world. This made Fei more confident in what he was about to do next. Alexander, the water and the pots are ready. Emma yelled. Angela and Emma each carried a pot of water and rushed over from the back half of the palace. Fei took the pots, one in each hand, and ordered Brooke to get a table. After placing the pots on the table, Fei kneeled before the table. Angela and the rest of the people didn't know what was going on, so they stared with curiosity. Time to show off my acting skills. Fei was laughing on the inside, but he appeared very serious. He placed his palms together in front of his chest and closed his eyes. A strange, mysterious language flew out of Fei's mouth that no one had heard of before. His expression was very serious, as if he was praying to a mysterious god. Although no one understood what the king was talking about, his serious expression influenced the people around him. Angela dragged Emma to kneel down first and then Brooke and the rest of the people in the palace all kneeled down as well. Fei heard what was happening behind him. He took a peek behind him and had to force himself from laughing. The act must go on. He started his bullshit in English, "D's nuts. I'm the handsome king and you are not. I used to call you on my cell phone. Why you always lying? None of you guys understand me. You don't understand, shit. I got to be serious." After repeating that for a couple times, Fei felt it was enough so he stood up. All the people behind him stood up as well, confused. Suddenly, Fei pulled out Brooke's sword from the scabbard and cut his palm. Blood spurted out. Fei reached his hand out and let the blood drip into both pots filled with clear water. "Alexander, you!" Angela yelled when she saw Fei's action. She was worried. Fei turned around and smiled at Angela to signal her that everything was under his control. While everyone was staring at his bleeding hand and the 2 pots, Fei secretly blocked the vision of everyone behind him with his back and opened the bottle containing the minor healing potion. He dumped half of the bottle of potion into the 2 pots. "O God of War! My brave warriors, you will all be saved. After my prayer, the God was willing to save us all. He has infused his power into my body. Anyone who drinks this blood water filled with the God's power, and all injuries will be recovered." Fei bullshitted even more. He was not ashamed at all. To prove his points, he put his bleeding hand into the water. After 2 seconds, when he pulled his hand out, the wound was recovered, with only a light red scar visible. What? My God. After witnessing the miracle, the crowd went crazy.